So I think this could be a turning point, and it is really up to us, and certainly in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, working with other organizations, we will make sure that we exert every pressure on governments to realize that Israel is no longer an asset as they believe it is, but it is a liability. The actions of Israel and the lack of counteraction, pressure on it from governments like the United States and Britain actually puts the lives of American and British servicemen in other parts of the world in jeopardy, as was acknowledged by an American general only a few weeks ago. So it could potentially be a turning point, and I think it's very much now down to the Israeli public to realize that Israel has really broken and crossed all red lines by attacking this ship, by murdering these 9 people, and that if justice is to come to the region, then an independent investigation should be carried out, not by Israel. Any young person on the street, if you ask them, can an armed robber investigate a robbery that he's committed, they say, you must be joking, it's laughable. So we need an independent international inquiry that will look at all the facts, take all evidence from all the people involved, and come to the conclusion as to what happened. And there is no doubt, having committed this in international water, it's going to take a lot of action by Israel to demonstrate that actually their soldiers were in danger. They were not. It was the lives of the 600 people on that ship that were in danger and resulted in 9 of them losing their lives.
Max Heil, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden said that the situation cannot be maintained, referring to Israel. Let's look at that. I mean, how can Israel maintain its momentum of systematic attacks on Palestinian lands? And in this case in point, let's mention the bulldozer death by Israeli forces of the activist Rachel Corrie. I'm sure you recall that. And recently there was another activist in which her face was shot at, blinding her in one eye. They were both American. I mean, is the U.S. too tolerant when its nationals are killed by the U.S.?
Yes, the U.S. is too tolerant. I think it's a mistake to say that this is a pattern that only exists in the case of Israeli actions. We all know that in the case of Indonesia, for example, Amy Goodman and Alan Narn, who are 2 journalists, were viciously attacked by Indonesia when it was an American client state. We also know that American nuns were murdered in El Salvador when it was actually carrying out policies that were beneficial to American business interests. So it's a mistake to think that this is just policy that only exists in the sphere of Israeli actions. I mean, it's general policy. The American government does not care about its citizens. It cares about the policies that will benefit the business community in America and the business community at large. So I think in some senses it's a mistake to see what is going on right now as a turning point in terms of American government policy. American government policy will be to continue to support Israel until the costs of supporting Israel actually outweigh the benefits. People who claim that this is just the result of some kind of Zionist lobby that's busy machinating in order to pursue its interests need to ask themselves, why is it that the Fortune 500 and all these huge American corporations continue to support sending all this money to Israel? Well, they do so because they think it's in their interests. And if we happen to think better than them, perhaps we can go into their boardrooms and try to convince them otherwise. And I think, frankly, we'd be making fools of ourselves.
Ray
it's
McGovern,
very clear
what do you
that
think?
Israel continues to be...
Let me bring in Ray McGovern and ask him, I mean, why is it that the U.S. is not holding Israel responsible? I mean, is it a case where they don't care about their U.S. nationals and citizens? In this case in point, 1 who was shot at and killed by Israeli forces?
That's a very good question, but all we need to do is look back to 1967 when the President of the United States said in as many words, I don't care how many U.S. naval seamen are killed, I don't care if the ship goes down, I don't want to embarrass my Israeli ally. Similarly, with the case of Rachel Corrie, she was deliberately killed and the U.S. did nothing. And now, of course, one of the people killed on the Marmara was a U.S. citizen. So, you know, it used to be in the old times, you know, Civus Romanus sum. I'm a Roman citizen. That used to count for something in the world. That got St. Paul a hearing in Rome. Now, Civus Americanus sum means nothing, and Israel knows that. I'd like to raise one point that hasn't been mentioned. This is a very serious affair, different in kind from the others. because a major U.S. ally has been involved in an act of war. Now, I'll bet you were thinking I was going to say Israel. Turkey. Turkey is a major U.S. ally bound by the NATO Accords, a treaty approved by our Congress. There is no treaty. There is no mutual defense treaty between the United States of America and Israel. That is frightfully important, especially since most Americans have been given to believe that we do have a mutual defense obligation to Israel. In the 70s, after the Arabs did attack Israel in 73, we offered such a treaty to the Israelis. And you know what they said? Well, thanks, but no thanks. And do you know why? Because international treaties require internationally recognized borders. And the Israelis wanted no part about talking about borders after they had extended their borders by virtue of war in 1967. And the other thing is that mutual defense treaties incur an obligation on both parties to let the other know before they're about to flail out and attack another country. And Israel didn't want to have to come to Washington and say, oh, by the way, we're going to attack Lebanon next week, or we're going to attack Gaza the following week, or we're going to raid Syria. They didn't want any part of that. So the reason that Israel is not bound to the United States by a mutual defense agreement is by their own wish not to be bound by those clauses. Turkey, on the other hand, Turkey is in a state technically, it's in a state of war with Israel because Israel has attacked Turkish territory. The Turks are involved this time. That's what makes it different. Erdogan is fit to be tied. One of the reports says he's thinking of coming with the next flotilla. This is not going to end because no matter how much love there is for Israel on the part of the United States government, there are other people involved now, including a United States ally.
Let's get a reaction there from Kamal Hawash. I mean, Ray McGovern just stated the further action of other flotillas coming into the picture. Give us your reaction to Ray McGovern's statements.
Could I just comment on the previous comment, our colleague from Gaza? And I don't disagree with him that economic ties are very important, but I don't think I would dismiss the strength of support for Israel from the Christian Zionists and from the Zionist lobby. I think it's a combination of factors, so I think that's important. There's no doubt that the next few months are going to see greater challenges to the siege on Gaza. There will be more attempts to break the siege. We heard George Galloway, a British MP, announced that there will be 2 flotilla going in September, and as we heard, the Turkish Prime Minister has said that he would go. I also understand and hear that the Iranians are discussing the possibility of sending something. So this is by no means the end of it, and I think this is where the possibility of it being a turning point is one that is worth seriously analyzing.
Kamal Hawash, though, can you please expand on Turkey, as Ray McGovern stated, because there is indeed, I mean, it is a turning point in the fact that, Turkey is on the offensive right now. I mean, they are taking this very seriously. There's condemnation coming on every side and every chance that Erdogan, the Prime Minister, has. How is that going to affect the landscape? I mean, at the same breath, can you please tell us, is, on the other hand, the U.S. cornered into a defensive diplomatic position to contain this fallout from this attack?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, don't forget this is the second incident, a more serious incident than one a few months ago when the Turkish ambassador was summoned to the foreign ministry in Israel, and he was treated shabbily, and that created an initial incident that Turkey took very badly, and in fact it requested an apology from Israel, and one was delivered. This is very unusual for Israel to apologize for anything it does.